In the last video, we read about King Nebuchadnezzar. Well, King Nebuchadnezzar dies, and his son, Belshazzar, becomes king. He's a very arrogant king. Well, he ends up having a banquet and has all the nobles there, and they're drinking and everything, and he says, you know what? All of the stuff that my dad got out of the temple in Jerusalem, bring it here. Bring all those goblets here, and we're going to drink out of them. God makes appear a finger of a human hand on the wall. Of the banquet. And it says, Mene, Tekel, Parsin, I believe. Well, nobody knows what this means. So Belshazzar's freaking out. He's like, oh my gosh, there's his hand, it's writing on the wall, we don't know what's happening. And Belshazzar asks him, are you Daniel, one of the exiles my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that you have insight, intelligence, and outstanding wisdom. So nobody else could tell him what this writing meant. So he says, this is what I've already assured anybody who can tell me what it is. They get a purple robe, and they get a gold chain around their neck, and be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Well, Daniel says, you can keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing of the king and tell him what it means. And then I'm actually going to read this because it's really good. This is what Daniel says to King Belshazzar. O king, the Most High God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty and greatness and glory and splendor. Because of the high position he gave him, all the peoples and nations and men of every language dreaded and feared him. Those the king wanted to put to death, he put to death. And those he wanted to spare, he spared. Those he wanted to promote, he promoted. And those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was deposed from his royal throne and stripped of his glory. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys and ate grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with dew from heaven, until he acknowledged that the Most High God is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and sets over them anyone he wishes. But you, his son, O Belshazzar, have not humbled yourself, though you do all this. Instead, you set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. And then he goes on to tell him more about, you brought the stuff from the temple and all that. Therefore, God sent the hand that wrote this inscription. What Mene, Tekel, Parsin means is, Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the scales and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in purple, a gold chain was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. Did you see how exact that was? At the age of 62, Darius the Mede took over the kingdom. The Bible is not vague in everything. There are some things, his kingdom is coming. We don't have a date for that. It says no man will know the time or the hour. But we do know things like this. Darius the Mede became king when he was 62 years old, and he was the king of Babylon. We know that exactly. So when you see that statue, and you see that, the head of gold and all that stuff, and it talks about the various kingdoms, those came to pass. And those kingdoms were exact when he explained what each of those things means.